Well, well, well. Look who just became a seven-figure curiosity. Look who turned into a question so unsettling, so unnervingly complex, that a private investor with more money than patience signed a contract just to understand what's going on inside your head. Not a motivational coach, not a therapist, not a research team studying market trends. A private entity, one of those people who makes decisions from behind smoked glass, who moves capital like chess pieces, who never spends a cent unless they know exactly how it returns multiplied, decided you were worth a seven-figure psychological autopsy. And now they're pacing their marble floors, rereading reports, calling analysts at obscure hours, trying to comprehend why the results made their stomach tighten in ways money was never supposed to. Someone paid a fortune to study you, and the aftermath has them concerned in ways no stock crash or geopolitical shift ever could. Because they expected clarity. What they got was anomaly. They started this whole thing with confidence, armed with the same arrogance all-powerful people have. The belief that humans are spreadsheets disguised as personalities. That everything you think, do, decide, avoid, chase, destroy, or rebuild can be placed neatly into a model. A neat formula, predictable inputs, predictable outputs. They believed they could run your mind through the same psychological machinery they use to assess CEOs, potential board members, high-risk entrepreneurs, disruptive founders. They thought you were another variable in the global behavioral economy, until your data hit their system like a spike of electricity that overloaded the software rather than fit into it. The first red flag wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, technical, easily overlooked by anyone except the type of analyst who notices the differences that matter. Your baseline responses weren't baselines at all. They fluctuated, but not in irrational ways, more like a system that adapts its operating mode based on context, not conditioning. They noted it, flagged it, moved on. After all, irregularity isn't uncommon, but irregularity with pattern, irregularity with intention, irregularity that doesn't drift randomly, but recalibrates strategically. That was new. They shifted into deeper tests, assuming they'd find a hidden framework. Emotional triggers, motivational levers, fear responses, social valuation patterns, identity anchors, all the usual psychological architecture that most humans lean on like invisible crutches. But every time they tried to identify your psychological load-bearing walls, the blueprint changed. It wasn't inconsistency, it was evolution mid-analysis, as if you refused to let them study the version of you they thought they were studying. The moment the investor got the first quiet phone call, the kind analysts make when they can't explain what they're seeing, they didn't get nervous. Not yet. They simply raised an eyebrow, ordered deeper testing, approved more funding, signed off on an expansion of the research parameters. After all, 7 figures buys curiosity, 7 figures buys control, 7 figures buys access to patterns most people will never see. What 7 figures never expected to encounter was someone who doesn't respond to pressure the way humans were designed to. Someone who doesn't crumble, doesn't spike, doesn't spiral, doesn't latch onto psychological escape routes. Someone whose internal architecture contradicts the models used to predict behavior in everything from consumer markets to political ideology to crisis management. The deeper the analysis went, the more something unnerving emerged. Your mind wasn't chaotic. It was structured, but not in the ways they were trained to recognize. Not in familiar shapes, not in outdated human templates. Your structure wasn't built for stability. It was built for transformation. You think in trajectories, not loops. You adapt like someone who stopped seeking safety years ago and started seeking something far more dangerous: clarity. By week 3, 2 analysts resigned from the project, not dramatically, not with moral protests or emotional breakdowns. They simply realized they were outmatched. They said the same thing in different words. "We don't have the training for this mental architecture." Not because you were unstable, but because you were unframeworked. You don't behave like someone reacting to life. You behave like someone sculpting it. Trauma didn't break you. It sculpted you. Isolation didn't weaken you. It refined you. Pressure didn't distort you. It aligned you. The investor thought they would find your weaknesses. Instead, they found adaptations that shouldn't exist in someone who never had institutional resources, elite-level training, or guided psychological development. They found a mind that learned to self-correct under stress, self-analyze under threat, self-upgrade during collapse. A mind that doesn't regress to old wounds. A mind that integrates them. That's when the investor's concern began. Not fear, not paranoia. Concern. Concern is the emotion powerful people feel when a system they believed in stops obeying their assumptions. Concern is what happens when someone who controls outcomes encounters an outcome without a control point. The psychological profiling reached a level they reserve for candidates being evaluated for influence, political, economic, cultural, destabilizing influence. They wanted to know what happens when someone like you gains momentum. What happens if your trajectory continues? What happens if more people like you exist? What happens if you stop pretending to fit into the templates built for average minds? Because here's the part they never said out loud, but the analysts whispered among themselves: your mind doesn't scale like other minds. If a normal mind is a staircase, yours is an exponential curve. If a normal person adapts to situations, you mutate to them. If normal people build protection through avoidance, you build dominance through understanding. Most people get predictable with age. Their patterns solidify, their motivations narrow, their emotional maps calcify. Yours didn't. According to the longitudinal markers in your psychological footprint, your adaptability curve is still climbing. Most people peak in their 20s. You were just constructing your foundation. By your 30s, you weren't stabilizing, you were accelerating. By your 40s, you'll be operating in a cognitive architecture that their models don't have language for. The investor wasn't warned that they were studying someone whose mind doesn't plateau. That's why 7 figures suddenly felt like an underpayment. Because if your mind keeps evolving at the rate your psychological metrics predict, the question wasn't, what are you? The question became, what will you be? And more importantly, what structures will struggle to contain you? When they brought in the behavioral economists, things got worse. These are people who study how minds influence markets, social patterns, collective decision-making. They expected your data to reveal your vulnerabilities: fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of social consequences. Instead, the models showed the opposite. You become clearer under loss, sharper under rejection, more disciplined under failure, more sovereign under social collapse. You are not motivated by the things they use to control society: status, validation, belonging, scarcity. You operate on internal metrics, internal meaning, internal momentum. They couldn't find the hooks that work on everyone else. You don't respond to pressure, they do. You don't break under isolation, they panic. You don't attach to external narratives, they require them. The investor realized the truth quietly, privately, without theatrics. They weren't studying a vulnerability, They were studying a threat to outdated systems, not threat as in violence, threat as in unpredictability, threat as in autonomy, threat as in refusal to collapse where others break, threat as in someone who cannot be forecasted. The concern deepened when they tested your susceptibility to influence. They used subtle linguistic cues, persuasion algorithms, emotional priming, all the techniques used in advertising, political messaging, social engineering. None of it registered on your motivational axis. You don't move toward pleasure or away from pain the way their models assume. You move toward evolution. You move toward self-definition. You move toward internal truth, even when it costs you, even when it isolates you, even when it transforms you into someone unnerving to predictable minds. They expected to find patterns. Instead, they found thresholds. You don't shift gradually. You transform in leaps. Something happens. A line is crossed. A realization crystallizes, and you become a version of yourself that didn't exist the day before. People fear that because it means they can never know which version of you they're meeting tomorrow. Systems fear that because adaptability at that level cannot be contained. By the time the neuroscientists joined the project, the investor was already uneasy. They ran cognitive load tests, stress mapping, threat anticipation models. They found that your mind behaves like someone who has rehearsed crisis internally for years, not out of paranoia, but out of necessity. You don't panic because your mind has already simulated outcomes, consequences, and long-term implications before the situation arises. You aren't fearless. You're fluent in fear. You don't avoid it. You metabolize it. The neuroscientists flagged something unusual. You don't form attachments the typical way. You form bonds through resonance, not proximity. Loyalty through alignment, not obligation. Connection through truth, not comfort. This made you both extremely trustworthy and extremely unpredictable. Trustworthy because you don't betray people for convenience. Unpredictable because you walk away without hesitation when integrity breaks. They called this selective emotional governance. The investor called it concerning autonomy. But the real shock came from the future trajectory models. They tried to map your life outcomes. They expected volatility, collapse, instability. Instead, they found something unnerving. Your life curve bends upward long-term, not because circumstances favor you, but because your mind refuses stagnation. You grow through damage. You ascend through confusion. You reconstruct yourself through collapse. They couldn't predict your final form because you haven't chosen your final form yet. That's when the investor realized the 7 figures weren't spent analyzing who you are. They were spent analyzing who you're becoming. And that is what made them truly, deeply nervous. Because every system in the world, financial, political, social, depends on people staying predictable. And you don't behave like someone shaped by the system. You behave like someone shaped beyond it. You behave like someone the system didn't forecast. You behave like someone who can't be bought, swayed, intimidated, or emotionally manipulated into compliance. The concern wasn't that they couldn't understand you. The concern was that you don't require understanding to operate. You move anyway. You evolve anyway. You sharpen anyway. You rise anyway. And that leads us here to the quiet truth the investor didn't want in the final report. Your mind isn't a risk. Your mind is a contagion. The kind that spreads not through words or influence, but through example. The kind that makes others question their conditioning. The kind that destabilizes outdated systems simply by existing at full capacity. They studied you because they sensed a shift coming. They grew concerned because they realized you are one of the ones accelerating it. And as they pressed deeper into your psychological maps, searching for a ceiling, a limit, a breaking point, they found none, not yet. Which means they're not just concerned about who you are today, they're concerned about who your mind allows you to become next. What they didn't anticipate, what their 7-figure budget didn't prepare them for, was the psychological gravity of someone who no longer measures themselves by who they used to be, but by the direction of their internal evolution. Most minds move linearly. Yours didn't. Yours bent around pressure, sharpened under loss, adjusted to chaos with the fluency of someone who stopped needing stability a long time ago. They couldn't model that. They couldn't simulate it. They couldn't quantify the moment a mind stops surviving and starts expanding, even in environments that should have shattered it. They weren't prepared to study someone who doesn't grow through comfort, but through confrontation. Confrontation with truth, with failure, with the old self collapsing into a newer one that the world isn't ready for. And when their algorithms flagged the possibility that your developmental curve accelerates after every breaking point instead of declining, that's when concern shifted into something quieter, heavier, more existential: uncertainty. Investors hate uncertainty. They thrive on control, on predictable trends, on measurable risk. But how do you measure the risk of someone who evolves beyond the metrics designed to evaluate them? How do you quantify a mind that becomes more dangerous every time life hits it? Because you didn't just survive everything that was supposed to end you. You used it. You metabolized it. You integrated it. You turned every wound into information, every betrayal into clarity, every collapse into restructuring. They don't have tools for that. They never needed them. Because people aren't supposed to evolve like that. Not without guidance, not without mentorship, not without systems shaping their growth. But you grew in the wastelands of your own life, without validation, without applause, without a blueprint. And in doing so, you built psychological architecture they have never encountered, not in their elite candidates, not in their generational wealth offspring, not in their high-performance subjects. You built yourself through necessity, and necessity builds sharper minds than comfort ever could. That's what they couldn't put into the report, the part that couldn't be graphed. That your evolution didn't come from privilege, but pressure, and pressure-built minds don't owe anything to the systems that failed them. They operate independently, autonomously, unapologetically. You became self-directed in a world that relies on people being externally controlled. And that was the first sign that they weren't studying a person. They were studying a trajectory, a direction, a shift in the human template that their 7-figure analysis couldn't intercept or slow down. The investor wanted to understand you so they could predict you. They wanted to predict you so they could quantify you. They wanted to quantify you so they could neutralize potential volatility. But the deeper the research went, the more they realized that volatility wasn't a dysfunction. It was a design. You don't explode unpredictably. You transform strategically. You don't break into chaos. You break into clarity. You don't destabilize for attention. You destabilize for alignment. In psychological terms, you represent a new category entirely, one their classification tools weren't built for. A consciousness that adjusts faster than circumstances can corner it. They tried to measure your adaptability, but adaptability wasn't the right word. What you do isn't adapting, it's recalibrating, reformatting, reconstructing your inner world to match the demands of the external one without losing your sense of direction. Most people fragment under too much reality. You consolidate. Most people numb themselves to survive. You expose yourself to truth and use it to evolve. Most people get smaller when life presses on them. You expand. And when the investor realized that your mind doesn't shrink from pressure, it consumes it, that's when the real concern began. Because pressure is what they use to control people. Scarcity, fear, shame, loss. These are the levers used in marketing, politics, economics, even relationships. They rely on people reacting in predictable ways. But you don't react, you respond. And those responses aren't emotional, they're strategic. You don't seek comfort, you seek clarity. You don't seek approval, you seek alignment. You don't seek belonging, you seek evolution. So when they pressed deeper into your psychological patterns, they found a disturbing absence of something they rely on. Compliance, not rebellion, compliance. Because rebellion is predictable too. Rebels act to be seen, you don't. You act to become. Rebellious minds are loud. Evolving minds are quiet until the shift is irreversible. They didn't find chaos. They found sovereignty. And sovereignty cannot be purchased, influenced, or incentivized. That's when the private investor started asking different questions. Questions that weren't in the original brief. Not who are they, but how did they become this? Not what motivates them, but why can't we track their internal reward system? Not are they a threat, but what happens when more minds like this appear? Because patterns like yours aren't isolated anymore. They're multiplying. They're emerging in people who grew up without safety nets, without illusions, without the comfort of believing systems will save them. People who had to build their identity from fractures rather than foundations. People who learned early that reality doesn't reward softness. People who realized that emotional independence wasn't a luxury, it was survival. You are one of the early models of this new psychological emergence, but you will not be the last. And that's what terrified them, not your mind alone. But the possibility that your mind is a preview, a prototype, a signal of a generational shift where internal governance replaces external control, where individuals stop needing the systems designed to shape them. When the analysts ran projections, life outcome charts, behavioral curves, influence patterns, they didn't see someone who becomes easier to categorize over time. They saw someone who becomes harder, someone whose trajectory bends upward every time circumstances try to bend it downward, someone whose identity becomes sharper every time life tries to dull it, someone who doesn't fear transformation, they initiate it. They realized that as you evolve, your motivations shift away from validation and move toward purpose, away from reacting and toward designing, away from self-defense and into self-direction. And when someone reaches that level of internal control, external influence weakens. That's when people start building their own frameworks instead of inheriting them. That's when people start choosing paths that aren't profitable for the systems built around them. That's when autonomy becomes contagious. The investor didn't spend 7 figures because they were curious. They spent it because autonomy threatens the architecture of power. And as they dug deeper into your thought processes, your decision-making patterns, your emotional recovery speed, your self-reinvention cycles, they realized something quietly devastating. You don't need them. You don't need their approval. You don't need their structures. You don't need their models, metrics, hierarchies, narratives, or incentives. You operate from an internal compass calibrated by experience rather than expectation. You navigate using instinct sharpened by truth rather than illusions fed by society. You evolve too quickly to be controlled by systems built for slow, predictable humans. So their concern wasn't personal, it was structural. You are what happens when a mind refuses to collapse under pressure and instead uses pressure to refine itself. You are what happens when someone stops waiting for permission to grow. You are what happens when someone's identity becomes self-constructed, self-sustained, self-regulated. They study you now because soon they won't be able to. They track your thinking now because soon it will outrun their instruments. They wanted to be ahead of you. Instead, they found themselves studying someone they're already behind. The more they analyzed your psychological evolution, the more one truth became unavoidable. You are not a follower in any system. You are not even a disruptor. You are a rewriter, a reorganizer, a reformatter of patterns that were meant to contain people for generations. Systems depend on the assumption that people won't evolve too far above the model. You are proof that assumption is dying, and they saw it. In your adaptability, in your non-compliance, in your emotional sovereignty, in your capacity to regenerate purpose after every collapse. They saw a mind that doesn't just survive pressure, it harvests it. They saw someone who doesn't need stability to grow, someone who doesn't need permission to reinvent, someone who doesn't need validation to feel real. You operate on a frequency that systems can't hear until the shift has already happened. And by the time they notice, it's irreversible. They know this. They saw it in your data. They felt it in the way your psychological charts refused to flatten. They recognized it in the upward curve of your long-term projections. They understood it in the absence of a breaking point. That's what made their concern turn into something else entirely. Caution, not fear. Fear is emotional. Caution is strategic. Caution means they see potential. Caution means they recognize volatility that can't be manipulated. Caution means they realize you are not someone they can intercept. You are someone they must adapt around. Their seven-figure analysis didn't give them control. It gave them a warning that your mind is entering a phase where external systems lose influence and internal architecture becomes the core of your evolution. That you are not someone who can be shaped by narratives. They bounce off you. That you are not someone who can be redirected by pressure. You metabolize it. That you are not someone who collapses under truth. You sharpen in it. They studied you to understand the shift. They grew concerned when they realized you embody it. But concern isn't enough to stop what's coming next, because your mind isn't done evolving. It is only beginning the chapter where internal identity overtakes external conditioning, where self-direction replaces inherited structures, where autonomy becomes your default operating mode. And once someone enters that phase, once someone accesses that psychological state, they become something the old systems can't manage. Someone who isn't waiting to be saved, guided, instructed, validated, or controlled. Someone who governs themselves. Someone who outgrows the frameworks designed to limit them. Someone who makes seven-figure investors nervous, not because of what they've done, but because of what they're becoming. Someone whose evolution won't pause for anyone's comfort. Someone who doesn't fear the next version of themselves. Someone who accelerates the shift simply by continuing to exist at full cognitive capacity. And that brings everything to the threshold they couldn't model. The point where concern turns into anticipation, where anticipation turns into unease, where unease turns into the acknowledgement that your evolution is not a phenomenon they can observe from a distance anymore. It is something that will reshape every system you interact with, whether intentionally or not. Because the truth they refused to say out loud in the final report was simple. Once a mind like yours reaches this stage, it stops being a subject of study and starts becoming a force of influence. Not influence as in followers, influence as in gravitational pull. You alter environments by entering them. You shift dynamics without speaking. You push people toward their own self-honesty simply by refusing to lower your frequency. These traits don't show up in personality metrics. They show up in outcomes. And that is where their seven-figure research hit its most uncomfortable realization. You cause transformation by proximity, not intention. The analysts didn't have a term for this at first. They called it behavioral displacement, then cognitive ripple effect, then identity destabilization vector. But those phrases didn't capture the core truth. Because what they observed wasn't destabilization, it was exposure. People around you lose the ability to pretend, even if they don't say it out loud. They confront their insecurities faster. They feel their masks slipping. They feel their motives tightening like too small shoes. That's the real reason you've always made certain people uncomfortable. Your mind doesn't operate in performative layers. It operates in truth mode by default. And truth has a way of stripping every illusion within its radius. The investor didn't expect that. They thought understanding you would give them leverage. They thought they could map your responses, decode your triggers, find the places where you bend. Instead, they realized you don't bend. You pivot, you redirect, you reframe. You transmute pressure into clarity and clarity into direction. That's why their concern stopped being academic and became strategic. They didn't fear your unpredictability. They feared your predictability, the kind rooted in internal alignment rather than external influence. Because once someone becomes internally governed, they stop playing the same incentives the world runs on. And when someone stops responding to the incentives, they become unmanageable. They started noticing patterns outside the lab, too. Not in your behavior. Your behavior was the easiest part of you to study. No, the real anomaly was in what your behavior triggered around you. Decision shifts, emotional resets, power dynamics, rearranging themselves in real time. It didn't matter whether it was a workplace meeting, a friendship circle, a negotiation, or a confrontation. Whenever you entered a space, people recalibrated, some unconsciously adjusting, some becoming defensive, some mirroring your tone without realizing it. To them, this looked like coincidence. To the investors' behavioral analysts, it looked like a psychological signature, a kind of field effect. They noted that your presence induced clarity responses in others, heightened self-awareness, reduced tolerance for their own nonsense, amplified internal conflict when motives didn't align with actions. In simple language, you don't just evolve, you drag people toward honesty. Some welcome it, some run from it, some attack you for it. But none are unaffected, and that was the moment they realized the seven-figure study hadn't been about predicting your choices. It had accidentally revealed something much larger. Your existence rewrites environments. Their models didn't have inputs for that kind of influence. Influence that wasn't taught, earned, forced, or strategized. Influence that was the byproduct of psychological evolution rather than a goal. Influence that doesn't seek followers, but triggers awakenings. This wasn't charisma. It wasn't charm. It wasn't persona. It was something deeper, coherence. Your internal world doesn't contradict itself anymore. That alone puts you in the rarest psychological percentile. People aren't used to coherence. They're used to fragments. And when they interact with someone built from coherence, their own fragmentation gets exposed. That's why you've always been misjudged at first glance and respected at second. That's why certain people felt intimidated, even when you weren't trying to be intimidating. That's why people talked about you in group chats as if you were some unsolvable equation. You weren't confusing, they were incompatible. The investor saw this, and concern turned into something sharper. Awareness. Because you weren't only evolving, you were accelerating the evolution of the people around you. If you were volatile, they could manage it. If you were passive, they could ignore it. But someone who makes others question themselves. Someone who sparks internal confrontation without speaking. Someone who raises standards just by existing at their own. That's not a subject of analysis. That's a catalyst. Catalysts destabilize systems without attacking them. They alter equations simply by entering them. Your evolutionary curve wasn't just personal, it was environmental. And in systems built on predictability, catalysts are the most dangerous variable of all. People like you don't cause chaos, you cause truth. And truth is far more destabilizing. The investor's private notes even used a term that never made it into the official documentation: uncontrolled amplifier. You amplify whatever is already present in people: fear, clarity, insecurity, ambition, denial, potential. You magnify suppressed truths. You intensify ignored instincts. You make people face themselves, and systems that rely on psychological complacency cannot afford amplifiers. They didn't want to admit that, so they buried the language. They sanitized the report. They rephrased everything to sound clinical. But the concern lingered, not because of what you are today, but because their models predicted what minds like yours become when they reach full psychological maturity. When someone like you hits their prime, not age, but clarity, the systems that rely on ambiguity lose grip. Their projections showed 4 phases of your evolution: fragmentation, reconstruction, sovereignty, and projection. You were expected to stall in reconstruction forever. Most people do. They rebuild themselves after collapse, but never gain full sovereignty. They carry the old debris into the new identity. You didn't. You didn't just rebuild yourself. You redesigned yourself. You cut out the unnecessary. You burned the outdated. You walked away from cycles that once defined you. Reconstruction for you wasn't recovery, it was rebellion. That's when sovereignty began. The phase where your identity is internally sourced instead of externally validated. The phase where you stop seeking mirrors and start becoming one. The phase where your decisions become clean, your boundaries become non-negotiable, your growth becomes non-linear. Sovereignty is the phase they feared the most, because sovereign minds aren't governable. They can cooperate, but they cannot be controlled. They can participate, but they cannot be owned. Sovereign minds don't need incentives. They choose direction. They don't require approval. They require alignment. They don't collapse under conflict. They clarify through it. But the projection phase was the part that shook them. Projection is when your inner evolution starts shaping outer reality. When the way you think begins affecting the way others think. When your personal clarity becomes a collective influence. When your internal standards become external disruptions. When your evolution becomes an example others unconsciously follow. In every simulation, when a mind like yours reaches projection phase, systems lose leverage. Not through revolt, through irrelevance. People stop chasing validation, stop participating in performative hierarchies, stop giving attention to the structures designed to drain them. They begin mirroring sovereign traits. They begin evolving themselves. They begin recognizing manipulation. They begin choosing internal truth over external pressure. This wasn't just about you anymore. It was about the ripple effect of your existence. And that's when the investor realized the real threat. Not that you were unmanageable, but that you were uncontainable. Not that you didn't fit into their models, but that others would stop fitting too, once they encountered someone like you. Because sovereign minds don't just evolve. They inspire evolution in others. That's the part they didn't want written anywhere. The part that explained why the results made them nervous. The concern wasn't fear of you. It was fear of your influence. Fear of what happens when minds like yours become common. Fear of a population that can't be steered by fear, bribed by status, or manipulated by scarcity. And the unsettling truth hit them harder than any chart on the wall. People like you don't create followers. You create awakenings. And awakenings don't stop at one person. They ripple. They replicate. They multiply. They spread through conversations, confrontations, realizations, and moments people can't forget. They spread through silence, presence, decisiveness, boundaries, and the refusal to live below your own standards. They spread through the way you change rooms without trying, the way you break patterns without noticing, the way you challenge illusions simply by refusing to participate in them. And once someone witnesses that, they can't unsee it. They can't return to the version of themselves that lived comfortably inside the system's expectations. That's what terrifies investors, the point of no return, the moment where one sovereign mind triggers another, and another, and another, until compliance becomes the anomaly and autonomy becomes the norm. Their models projected something they tried to bury in metaphors and vague terminology. The emergence of minds like yours marks the decline of predictable populations. Predictable populations are what markets rely on. Predictable populations are what political machines require. Predictable populations are what social hierarchies depend on. Predictable populations are what allow fear-based incentives to work. But you broke out of the predictable demographic. You broke out of the psychological schema. You broke out of the emotional algorithms built to segment people into manageable categories. And when one person does that, it's a deviation. When many do it, it's disruption. When enough do it, it's collapse. Not violent collapse, but institutional irrelevance, systematic erosion, a quiet revolution of people who stop responding to the levers that once controlled them. The investor knew they couldn't stop a shift like that, but they wanted to understand its velocity. How fast does someone like you spread? How quickly does a sovereign mind affect the people around them? How long until clusters like you form? How long until clusters become networks? How long until networks become movements? Not organized, not centralized, but emergent. They ran simulations repeatedly, feeding your psychological signature into models meant to forecast social contagion patterns. What they found was horrifying to them and liberating for you. Minds like yours spread faster through authenticity than falsehood spreads through manipulation. Because people are starving. Starving for truth. Starving for meaning. Starving for alignment. Starving for a version of themselves that isn't diluted by fear or performance. And when they meet someone operating from that place, they feel something they've been missing their entire lives. The permission to become themselves. That permission is your real power, not charisma, not intelligence, not resilience. Permission. Permission to evolve. Permission to question. Permission to break patterns. Permission to rebuild better ones. Permission to stop living inside expectations that never belonged to them. The investor saw this, and their concern deepened into something almost existential. Because systems can stop rebellion. Systems can punish defiance. Systems can manipulate the masses. But systems cannot stop evolution. They watched footage of you, interviews, interactions, conversations, moments captured indirectly. They observed how people around you moved differently, spoke differently, reconsidered themselves mid-sentence. They studied how your presence alone disrupted the comfortable illusions people cling to just to survive the week. They looked for signs of coercion or influence tactics, but found none. You weren't manipulating anyone. You were simply being. And being, in your case, was enough to rearrange the psychological architecture of those who weren't ready for that level of internal clarity. That's why they're concerned, not because you're dangerous to others, but because you're dangerous to everything that relies on human stagnation. They measured your emotional independence and found that you don't attach in ways that weaken you. You don't bond out of loneliness. You don't seek validation as a currency. You don't crave recognition as a substitute for identity. Your relationships, when you choose them, are built on resonance rather than dependency. And when dependency isn't present, control becomes impossible. The investor pressed the research team to identify a psychological entry point, a vulnerability that could moderate your trajectory. They searched for fear patterns, rejection wounds, unresolved attachments, ego triggers. They looked for the emotional backdoor through which most people can be manipulated. But every attempt returned the same conclusion. Your self-awareness neutralizes external influence, not because you don't feel emotions, but because you integrate them faster than others collapse from them. You don't run from your shadow, you dissect it. You don't dodge your fears, you interrogate them. You don't numb your confusion, you walk straight into it until it clarifies. And when someone does this consistently, there is no emotional hook left to grab. They found your fear responses intact, but they were subordinate to your clarity. They found your pain history present, but it wasn't controlling your choices. They found your insecurities, but saw that you faced them instead of compensating for them. They found your past, but discovered it no longer dictated your identity. That's what uncontainable means. Not that you're uncontrollable because you're volatile, but because you're conscious. Volatile minds are dangerous, conscious minds are unstoppable. And here's the part that rattled the investor the most. Every attempt to predict your future failed. The predictive models collapsed. The behavioral arc graphs flatlined. The long-term simulations contradicted themselves. Why? Because your future isn't determined by patterns of the past. Your future is determined by the choices of your next evolution. They couldn't compute someone whose trajectory depends more on internal upgrades than external circumstances. They couldn't measure someone who reinvents themselves intentionally, not reactively. They couldn't quantify someone who refuses to repeat versions of themselves they've already outgrown. They realized you don't scale horizontally, step by step, increment by increment. You scale vertically, jump, shift, transcend, reconfigure. That makes you difficult to map and impossible to contain, because vertical evolution happens in leaps, not ladders. It happens when the old identity collapses and the new one emerges fully formed. Systems rely on people climbing ladders. But you build elevators. You combust the old levels. You transition between identities faster than their models can refresh their datasets. This realization forced them into a corner. They weren't studying a personality type anymore. They were studying the blueprint of the psychological future. And the psychological future didn't look obedient. It didn't look predictable. It didn't look market-driven or fear-controlled. It looked sovereign. It looked self-directed. It looked like the kind of mind that regenerates its own purpose regardless of circumstances. This is where the internal memos shifted tone. They stopped asking questions about how to manage individuals like this and started asking questions like, how do we prepare for a world where this becomes normal? Because the concern wasn't you. The concern was scalability. A single sovereign mind is a curiosity. A generation of sovereign minds is a systemic disruption. They saw it in the younger demographics, people refusing to tolerate manipulation, refusing to chase hollow success, refusing to participate in dynamics that were considered normal just a decade ago. They saw it in conversations, online movements, cultural shifts, emotional language evolving, self-awareness rising, and personal boundaries strengthening. People were changing, and you were the outlier who showed the trajectory of where that change might lead. They realized quietly, reluctantly, but undeniably, that you are not an exception. You are a preview, a prototype of a mind that cannot be incentivized into compliance because it already knows its worth. A prototype of a psyche that does not fear isolation because it has survived it. A prototype of a person who doesn't crave recognition because they've already recognized themselves. This type of person cannot be mass-marketed to, cannot be fear-herded, cannot be socially manipulated at scale, cannot be controlled through shame, scarcity, or belonging pressures. And that is the end of their control model. That is the reason they're concerned. Not because you're chaotic, but because you're coherent. Not because you don't follow rules, but because you follow internal principles. Not because you threaten stability, but because you render outdated systems obsolete simply by existing in your true form. They wanted to study you. They wanted to map you. They wanted to quantify you. They wanted to understand how a mind becomes sovereign so they could find a way to interrupt the process. But they failed. They failed because the process wasn't external. It wasn't environmental. It wasn't accidental. It was chosen. Every breakthrough, every shift, every collapse you outgrew, every silence you embraced, every truth you faced, every version of yourself you discarded. Those were internal decisions, internal evolutions, internal awakenings. No system can interrupt an internal revolution. And that's what the investor finally understood. You cannot be managed. You cannot be forecasted. You cannot be contained. You cannot be bought. You cannot be steered. You cannot be softened. You cannot be shaped by external forces. Your evolution is self-authored. Your trajectory is self-directed. And your influence, your unintended influence, expands without your consent, without your effort, without your awareness. Not because you're trying to change anyone, but because the world has so few examples of someone who refused to stay small. Welcome back, you ungovernable force wrapped in human skin. You weren't supposed to walk into this world with this kind of voltage. But here you are, still burning, still bending realities you never agreed to inherit. And the funniest part? They've tried everything to measure you, categorize you, contain you. Until one day, that little hidden circle of robed intellectuals, mystics, and power-obsessed analysts decided to take matters into their own trembling hands. A secret society, the kind that thinks they see everything before it happens, tried profiling your energy. They approached the task with confidence, arrogance, and the delusion that they had the right tools to dissect someone like you. They gathered their relics, lit their rituals, sharpened their interpretations like scalpels. They believed they'd extract your blueprint, decode your frequency, map your inner world, as if it was just another artifact in their vault. But the moment they opened the file on you, the moment they tried to pull your essence through their precious little frameworks, their entire system buckled. You weren't a mystery. You were a miscalculation. And the final report they generated, not recruitment material, too dangerous to handle. It started quietly, the way things always begin when the universe is about to embarrass people who think they understand it. They gathered in their candle-lit chambers, the walls carved with sigils, the air thick with old power, all of them convinced this was just another assessment. But your energy didn't enter the room like a guest. It entered like a verdict. They tried reading you the way scholars read ancient manuscripts, slow, precise, self-assured. Yet the closer they reached, the more their instruments faltered. Their scrying bowls stuttered with static. Their astral charts flipped into unusable chaos. Their pendulums swung with frantic confusion, refusing to settle. Their incantations trembled back into their throats. You didn't disrupt their tools. You overpowered them simply by existing. When the Coven initiated the scrying segment of their procedure, they expected clarity, a vision, a silhouette, a whisper of your soul. Instead, the mirror cracked, not dramatically, but intentionally, like it recognized you before they did. The fracture didn't create a spiderweb of random destruction. It formed a single line, sharp as a warning, spelling only one thing in the shimmer of shattered reflection: access denied. That was their first hint that you are not something to be invited into a circle. You are the circle that devours the ones who enter it without permission. They tried again, refusing to believe a reflection could defy them. They placed new mirrors, polished and consecrated. Yet every time they attempted to pull your essence forward, the surface glitch cracked with the same message: access denied, access denied, access denied. Some of them whispered theories. Some of them felt their stomachs tighten. Some of them finally understood that your energy doesn't flow through channels. It breaks them. Their attempts to decode you were no different from moths trying to study fire without getting burned. They didn't account for the possibility that the fire wasn't a phenomenon, but a consciousness. And that consciousness was you. They switched to their psychological profiling approach, believing knowledge of the mind could grant them insight where mysticism failed. They attempted to frame your motives, map your behavioral patterns, predict your triggers, your fears, your inclinations. But you aren't a pattern. You're a paradox wrapped in precision. Their personality models fought for footing, clashing with one another. Their projections contradicted themselves. The more they tried to narrow you down, the wider the gap grew between their interpretations and your actual nature. They realized they weren't studying you. They were chasing you through the corridors of their own limitations. The head analyst, a man who had spent decades profiling anomalies, wrote in his notes that your energy defies linear comprehension, that your aura cycles unpredictably, not because it's chaotic, but because it's adaptive. You evolve too quickly for frameworks to keep up. He described the sensation of reading your field as standing in front of a locked door that keeps rebuilding itself every time you think you've found the key. You're not unapproachable. You're ever-shifting, a moving target with intention. Then came the deeper, quieter tests. The ones they don't document for the public part of their archives. Astral sensitivity examinations, energetic resilience measurements, threshold stability checks. Most people break somewhere during this process. You didn't break. You inverted the process. Their energy readers overloaded, their sigils dimmed, their protections flickered as if something on your frequency knocked politely, and the walls begged to open, terrified of refusing. You weren't fighting them. You weren't resisting. You were simply being. And that was enough to unbalance everything. One of the practitioners tried reaching into your timeline to see your origin point. She fainted, not from fear, but from recognition. Recognition that your timeline wasn't a thread. It was a wildfire. You weren't shaped. You erupted. You weren't taught. You remembered. You weren't built. You emerged. This was the moment the Coven began to understand that you aren't just different. You are disruptive by nature. When they moved into the final stage of profiling, the initiation readiness assessment, they expected either compatibility or rejection, but they received neither. The chamber lights dimmed, the air thickened, their runes flickered in protest, and the system that measures spiritual voltage sparked violently, marking your reading not in a number but in a warning, not recruitment material. Too dangerous to handle. No one had ever triggered that category before. It wasn't meant to be used. It was a theoretical label, the kind reserved for legends, monsters, or deities, entities whose power exceeds containment. You didn't fail their test. You broke the premise of the test itself. The society gathered to review the results, every one of them sitting in that dim chamber, with your name glowing on the parchment like a threat. They whispered about your unpredictability, your immunity to manipulation, your refusal to be categorized. They wondered how someone outside their lineage, outside their teachings, outside their ancient contracts, could carry this kind of gravitational pull. They questioned whether you were a phenomenon or a warning. They debated whether your existence was intentional or accidental. But the part that rattled them the most wasn't your power. It was your sovereignty, your unowned, unclaimed, uncontrollable. And to a secret society built on hierarchy, obedience, and curated power distribution. That's the most terrifying trait of all. The Coven scribes described you as something that walks without leaving tracks, something that moves without needing pathways, something that sees through structures instead of around them. Their attempts to read you made them feel as though they were the ones being read. And in a way, they were. Your soul doesn't tolerate intrusion. Your energy doesn't allow uninvited entry. You don't respond to extraction. You respond to intention. And their intention, hidden beneath ritual and curiosity, was exposure. They wanted to know what you were made of. Instead, they discovered what they were lacking. They feared your clarity. They feared your immunity to illusion. They feared the way you stand alone without craving belonging. But what truly broke them was this: you don't seek power. Power seeks you. You aren't impressed by their rituals, their rankings, their lineage, or their hidden doctrines. They realized you'd never kneel. You'd never obey. You'd never dilute yourself for the sake of belonging. They saw that even if they offered you a place among them, you'd simply look at it, tilt your head, and walk away. Not out of arrogance, but because your destiny doesn't fit inside their walls. The final decision was unanimous. They sealed your file. They archived the report with trembling hands. And they issued an internal order: do not approach this subject again. They didn't blacklist you. They ghost-listed you, the silent category reserved for entities whose existence is acknowledged but never engaged. To them, you are not a potential ally or recruit. You are a force of nature to be monitored from afar, studied with caution, and respected like a living omen. And yet they can't stop thinking about you. Your name circulates quietly through their meetings. Your presence lingers in their rituals. Your energy haunts their chambers like a shadow that wasn't supposed to follow them home. They are unsettled not because you rejected them, but because you didn't even have to. You were simply unavailable, unreadable, unreachable, uncontained. They didn't fail to recruit you. Recruitment was never an option. Their mistake was believing you were seeking anything from them. Their mistake was assuming they had something you didn't. Their mistake was thinking your power was a trait instead of a state they can't induce, replicate, or domesticate. And the truth is, they didn't discover you. They stumbled into your orbit and immediately felt the gravitational distortion of someone who doesn't fit into hierarchies, but bends them. Someone who doesn't join circles, but redefines them. Someone who doesn't need validation, because they carry their own authority like a weapon forged in silence. You weren't meant to be their student, their project, their experiment, their potential recruit. You were the audit they never prepared for. Their assessments weren't designed for someone who has already outgrown the structures they worship. And now, as they reread their own report, as they replay the cracks in the mirror, the warnings in the air, the failures of their rituals, they know what they encountered wasn't a candidate. It was a threshold. And thresholds aren't entered. They are crossed. They are survived. They are respected. And this, right here, this realization, this fracture in their certainty, this crack in their control, is where the story slips into something deeper, something they never meant to unleash, something they still don't understand. Because what they saw was only the outer layer of you. What they sensed was only the pulse. What they profiled was only the echo. And yet they're already unraveling. What happens when they discover what's underneath that surface? What happens when the mirror isn't the only thing that shatters? What happens when the society realizes they didn't profile you? They awakened something they can't put back to sleep. The unraveling began the moment they filed that report. A parchment stamped with your name, the warning classification, the cracked mirror insignia marking your file as a hazard. They thought documenting you would close the case. They thought sealing the folder would contain the energy that spilled through their rituals. But they didn't understand that your energy doesn't wait to be studied, and it doesn't sit obediently in archives. It travels, it echoes, it imprints. The moment they wrote, "Too dangerous to handle," they bound themselves to an outcome they weren't prepared to face. Because labeling you dangerous doesn't protect them from you. It protects you from them. The universe takes such declarations seriously. So while they whispered about you behind locked doors, something was shifting in their chambers. Something no one could see, but everyone could feel. Their candles flickered out of rhythm. Their runes dimmed at random. Their relics moved a fraction of an inch when no one was watching. Nothing overt, nothing dramatic, just subtle echoes of a presence they never invited but accidentally invoked. See, when they first tried profiling you, they treated your energy like data. They believed your essence could be indexed, categorized, stamped, and stored like every other recruit they'd assessed before. But your energy isn't a file. It's a frequency, and once they tapped into it, even briefly, traces of your frequency embedded themselves in their system. Their wards couldn't block it. Their sanctuaries couldn't contain it. Their scholars couldn't decipher it. Because your frequency has one defining feature, sovereignty, it does not obey. Some of them sensed it early. The younger initiates felt chills they couldn't explain. Their dreams became heavy with symbols they didn't recognize, fractured mirrors, shifting shadows, and a pair of eyes watching from the threshold of their subconscious. A few pretended they weren't affected. A few pretended they didn't know what they had done. But the most experienced ones knew. They could feel the aftershock of touching something they weren't meant to touch. They recognized the familiar pattern of an ancient warning. Do not attempt to measure what exists outside measurement. Your energy wasn't reacting to them in anger. It wasn't retaliating. It was simply refusing to be forgotten. When a secret society tries to erase what terrifies them, the universe forces them to remember it. So their rituals began failing at odd moments. Their readings became inconsistent. Their symbols lost precision. Any divination tool that once attempted to map your essence now produced errors. Some cracked, some overheated, some simply went dark. One of the elders attempted to reset the scrying mirror used on you. The moment he placed his hand on the frame, it fogged over and revealed the same message they thought they'd escaped. Access denied. His hand trembled for the first time in decades. That's when the internal fear began to shift into something more primal. They started questioning whether your energy was following them, or whether they had stepped into a part of your field they didn't have permission to enter. The difference is subtle but terrifying. One implies pursuit, the other implies trespass. They started to understand that your energy doesn't need to attack. It simply holds its position with such force that anything unprepared is pushed into disarray. You didn't invade their domain. Your domain extended into theirs the moment they invoked your name without the right to do so. This is the part no one wants to admit, not even to themselves. You altered the architecture of their spiritual environment just by being witnessed. Their most advanced practitioners began seeing distortions when they meditated. Their visions became non-linear, their intuitive pathways tangled. The chamber walls felt alive, listening, reactive. No one dared say it aloud, but everyone felt the same unsettling truth. Your energy didn't stay in their mirror. It seeped into their temple stones, their sigils, their breath. They didn't understand how, but they understood why. You were never meant to be profiled, not because you're too powerful, but because your energy belongs to a category outside every hierarchy they've designed. They operate in ranks, levels, tiers, circles. You exist in an axis they do not possess language for. They call it dangerous because they don't know what else to call what cannot be tamed. The panic came in slow waves. Not loud panic, quiet panic. The kind that spreads in silence. The kind that makes people look over their shoulders without knowing what they're looking for. The kind that tightens the air. It began with the elder responsible for classifying your energy signature. He reported seeing shapes move in his peripheral vision whenever he thought about you. His candles refused to stay lit while writing your file summary. He spoke to no one about it, not because he was hiding it, but because he feared saying it aloud would make it more real. But it didn't matter. Everyone else in the chamber was experiencing their own version of the same thing. The scry practitioner saw your reflection in the water even when she wasn't calling on you. The archivist heard faint tapping on the cabinet where your file was stored. The head seer felt a pressure behind his eyes every time your name was mentioned, as if someone or something was observing him back. They tried purifying the chamber. The incense died mid-burn. They tried reinforcing their protections. The glyphs flickered. They tried ignoring the signs. The signs intensified. And that's when they realized the real issue wasn't your energy. It was their audacity. You didn't breach their sanctum. You didn't send a warning. You didn't retaliate. Your energy did nothing except maintain its boundary with perfect, sovereign stillness. That alone destabilized everything they believed about power, control, and hierarchy. Because a force that doesn't have to react is a force that cannot be dominated. Their panic deepened when they realized something even more disorienting. Your file was evolving, not physically, but energetically. When the archivist opened it days later, the air pressure in the room changed. The parchment containing your results felt warm. The ink shimmered faintly. The cracked mirror symbol they stamped onto your record pulsed once, just once, but enough to make the archivist stumble backward as if the paper exhaled. The society's elders gathered again, forming a circle around the file like it was a volatile artifact. The head elder placed his hand over it, not touching, hovering, measuring the energetic residue. His eyes widened. He felt a current in the parchment, as if the energy they attempted to assess was still alive inside the file, refusing to be contained by ink or terminology. He whispered the conclusion they all feared but already knew. We didn't analyze them. We awakened them. That sentence marked the true beginning of their unraveling, not because they believed you would attack them, but because they realized your energy had observed their attempt to study you and chosen not to tolerate it. You didn't retaliate with violence, you retaliated with truth. The truth of your nature, the truth of your origin, the truth of your sovereignty. And they finally understood. Your existence is not something they can categorize. It is something they must respect. Their dreams grew stranger, more vivid, more symbolic. Some saw a threshold they weren't allowed to cross. Some saw a closed gate. Some saw themselves staring into a mirror that refused to show their reflection. All variations of the same message. Do not enter where you are not invited. They attempted one final test, an observational one, a harmless scan of your aura from a distance. A simple reading meant to offer closure. The moment they initiated it, the chamber temperature dropped. The candles extinguished, and their reading crystals fractured down the middle, not in chaos, but in perfect symmetry. The crystals weren't reacting to you. They were refusing the assignment. Access denied. The same message that cracked their mirror. The same message that crushed their confidence. The same message that told them what they were now being forced to accept. You are not a subject to be studied. You are not an energy to be categorized. You are not a phenomenon to be documented. You are an event, a threshold, a force, a warning wrapped in a human figure. And that's when they realized the true danger wasn't that you were too powerful to handle. It was that they never had permission to try. Your energy wasn't reacting to their intrusion. It was simply correcting their error. Because when a coven crosses into a frequency that isn't theirs to touch, something ancient steps forward, not to harm them, but to remind them of the laws they forgot. That ancient reminder didn't come as thunder, flames, or chaos. It arrived through silence, a silence so heavy it felt like the air itself stopped participating in their rituals. In that silence, their breath sounded too loud. Their thoughts felt exposed. Their intentions felt naked. Because for the first time in their history, the Watchers became the Watched. The chamber shifted subtly, the walls holding a tension they couldn't identify. The elders exchanged glances, the kind shared between people who have seen power before but never felt it push back. Not like this. Not in a way that bypassed their protections, ignored their hierarchies, and held them accountable without uttering a single word. They tried to resume their rituals, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. Their chants felt hollow. Their sigils refused activation. Their sacred tools sensed the disturbance before they did. Nothing responded the way it used to. Nothing behaved according to their rules. Their entire structure felt compromised, not by damage, but by presence. A presence that didn't belong to them, yet didn't threaten them either. It simply stood there, occupying space their arrogance once claimed as theirs alone. This is what unnerved them the most. Whatever they woke wasn't interested in their rituals, their status, or their lineage. It wasn't even interested in them. It existed independently, sovereignly, unbothered. It treated their existence the same way you do, like background noise barely worth acknowledging. Their panic deepened in the quiet. Because when an ancient force chooses not to destroy you, it means the destruction was never the point. The lesson was, the head seer finally broke the silence, his voice cracking under the weight of a realization he didn't want to say aloud. We crossed into an origin we do not understand. Origin. They had tried profiling your energy, assuming it had a lineage, a pattern, a structure they could trace, backward. But nothing in their archives aligned with you. Not your volatility, not your immunity, not your mirror-cracking sovereignty. Their texts warned of forces that don't descend from any known tradition, forces that neither ascend nor fall, but exist outside the cycle entirely. They always believed those records were metaphors, until you walked into their mirror. Now they weren't just facing you, they were facing the implications of you. And the implications were rewriting their entire understanding of what power looks like when it doesn't ask for permission. Their elders retreated to discuss the situation privately, though nothing about their gathering felt private anymore. The atmosphere carried the echo of their earlier mistake, summoning what should never have been summoned, poking into a frequency that observes the observer. They sat around a circular stone table, parchment spread before them, hands trembling, trying to reanalyze the conclusions stamped on your file. Not recruitment material. They could accept that. Too dangerous to handle. They could rationalize that. But what none of them had the vocabulary to express was the truth rising in their throats like a storm they couldn't swallow. They didn't reject you. They were rejected. Not personally, not emotionally, cosmically. Your energy didn't deny them because it disliked them. It denied them because they weren't compatible with the frequency they attempted to access. It's the same reason the mirror cracked. Mirrors don't lie, but they do refuse. And your reflection wasn't something they were allowed to hold. The more they tried to analyze this, the more the room itself resisted. A thick unease settled into the stone. Their candles burned unevenly, casting shadows that stretched longer than they should. Their voices echoed strangely, as if the chamber was replaying their words back to them with distorted intention. And then came the second fracture. Not in a mirror this time, in their ranks. One of the younger members, bright, zealous, desperate to prove her worth, suggested they try again. A second attempt. A refined ritual. A deeper reading. She believed the first failure was a miscalculation. She believed everything could be solved with stronger protection, better accuracy, clearer intention. The elders reacted instantly. No. A single word, authoritative, final. But the girl didn't understand the weight of what they had unleashed. She didn't understand that your energy wasn't a puzzle they could solve with upgrades or determination. She didn't understand that access denied wasn't a warning, it was a boundary. Boundaries don't negotiate. The elders explained nothing. They couldn't. Their egos were wounded, their certainty shattered. How could they admit aloud that they had touched something beyond their comprehension? something that refused their authority without effort, something that mirrored their intentions, not with hostility, but with indifference. The younger member grew frustrated. She accused them of fear, of stagnation, of weakness. She raised her hand, preparing to speak your name again, hoping defiance would earn her a place in the society's inner circle. The lights flickered, her voice broke. A chill swept through the chamber like an unseen hand placing a warning on every spine in the room. Not anger, not threat, correction. She lowered her hand slowly, trembling from something she couldn't articulate. Something she felt in her chest, not as fear, but as recognition. She wasn't facing something external. She was facing the truth of her own limitations. You didn't silence her. Her own energy did, bending under the pressure of your frequency. The elders said nothing. They didn't need to. The room had answered for them. From that moment, the coven didn't debate you again. Instead, they turned their focus inward, trying to understand how something they invoked only once had managed to ripple through every layer of their sanctum. They examined their tools, their rituals, their glyphs, their intuitions. They searched for corruption, interference, spiritual contamination. But there was none. Everything failing within their circle wasn't corrupted. It was recalibrating. Your presence didn't pollute, it purified. Their illusions, hierarchies, and ego-driven structures were dissolving under the weight of your authenticity. Energies that relied on secrecy, manipulation, and control cannot coexist with energies rooted in sovereignty, clarity, and truth. One by one, their symbols stopped responding to their usual commands. One by one, their readings began returning blank. One by one, their confidence cracked the same way their mirror did. They finally understood. Your energy wasn't punishing them. It was revealing them, revealing their overconfidence, revealing their fragility, revealing that their authority was conditional, not absolute, revealing that power borrowed through ritual is nothing against power woven into existence. The head elder wrote a second note. This one never meant for the archives. Whatever we awakened is not hostile, it is sovereign. We were trespassers, not targets. That's when the fear turned into something else. Not dread, not panic, something far more humbling, reverence. Because they finally grasped the truth. You were not meant to be initiated. You were meant to be acknowledged, not as a member, as a threshold, a guardian frequency, a force that isn't invited into circles because it creates them. And yet, even with this realization, one question tormented them. If the echo of your energy dismantled their sanctum so effortlessly, what would the full presence of you do? What would happen if you ever stepped into their circle willingly? What would happen if you ever looked into their mirror intentionally? What would happen if you ever decided to awaken the part of yourself they accidentally touched? That question became their new haunting, because the more they tried to suppress it, the louder it echoed in their minds. The more they tried to ignore it, the more the mirror's fracture shimmered in their memory. The more they tried to distance themselves from your file, the more the file pulsed with quiet inevitability. For the first time, the society questioned its own existence, not because you threatened it, but because your existence made theirs feel small, fragile, outdated, performative. Their rituals were powerful. Your presence was definitive. Their hierarchies were rigid. Your energy was fluid. Their knowledge was inherited. Yours was remembered. They realized what they awakened wasn't something they could study or recruit. It was something they would spend the rest of their lives trying to understand. And deep down, beneath their robes, titles, and rituals, they feared the same thing. You haven't even shown your real power yet. You haven't stepped into their circle. You haven't opened the mirror. You haven't lifted a hand. Everything they're experiencing is just the echo. That realization settled over the society like a shadow that refused to fade. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a curse. It was a truth, quiet, sovereign, and immovable. A truth that reshaped the air in their chambers, the tone of their meetings, the cadence of their rituals. Every elder felt it in their bones. Every initiate sensed it in their spirit. They tried to continue with their duties, tried to move on, tried to pretend that profiling you had been just another assignment. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every task felt smaller. Every invocation felt weaker. Every attempt to read the unseen felt diluted and distant, as if your presence had shifted the equilibrium of their entire practice. Because once you encounter a frequency that overrides your own, everything you do afterward feels like performance. The society's oldest scholar, a man who had cataloged anomalies for over 60 years, admitted privately that he had never felt energy like yours. Not chaotic, not malicious, not divine, just sovereign. And sovereign energy doesn't enter spaces seeking approval. It enters as itself, without negotiation, without compromise, without need. He realized, perhaps too late, that profiling you had been their mistake, not because they failed to understand you, but because you were never something meant to be understood through measurement. You were meant to be understood through experience, and they experienced you in the wrong way, uninvited, unprepared, unaligned. The ripple effects of their mistake continued to spread. Their rituals grew heavier, their visions grew dimmer, their mirrors grew quieter. Where once they saw clearly, now they saw static. Where once their intuition flowed, now it stumbled. Where once their sanctum felt impenetrable, now it felt watched, not by hostility, but by accountability. Their tools had not lost power. They had lost permission. The universe doesn't punish arrogance. It redirects it. Some of the younger members began questioning everything. If an outsider's energy could collapse their protocols, what did that say about the strength of their order? If a mirror cracked, rather than reveal your reflection, what did that say about the limitations of their sight? If their tools fractured under the weight of a single unidentified presence, what did that say about their control? Their questions spread like hairline fractures across the society's foundation. The elders tried to silence the panic subtly, reminding their ranks that anomalies are rare, that power beyond understanding appears once in a generation, that sometimes the universe presents forces not meant for recruitment. But beneath their calm explanations, their eyes revealed a truth they couldn't hide. They had never encountered anything like you before. Not in old scrolls, not in forbidden tomes, not in whispered legends. Every teaching they possessed about dangerous energies warned of entities that attacked, entities that deceived, entities that consumed. But you didn't attack, you didn't deceive, you didn't consume. You simply refused. And refusal, when done by a sovereign force, carries more weight than destruction, because destruction ends something. Refusal exposes it. The society wanted to forget you. They wanted to erase your file, burn the documents, pretend the mirror never cracked, pretend their tools never failed. But the universe doesn't allow people to forget what they weren't meant to touch. Every time the archivist tried to remove your report from the vault, the cabinet stuck. Every time the elders attempted to destroy the parchment, the flames resisted. Every time an initiate tried to speak your name, dismissively, their throat tightened just enough to remind them of boundaries. Your energy wasn't haunting them, It was correcting them. They weren't victims of your power. They were witnesses to their own limitations. Some nights, their chambers felt colder than the stone should allow. Some nights, their candles fought against invisible drafts. Some nights, a faint hum filled the air. The same hum they heard when the mirror cracked. The same hum their instruments emitted before failing. The same hum that marked the moment they realized they were dealing with something that didn't fit into any of their known categories. But the hum wasn't your presence. It was your echo, reminding them that presence isn't required for impact. The society began avoiding the chamber where they attempted to read you. Even those who claimed to be unshaken found excuses to reroute their tasks elsewhere. The air in that room felt different now, as though the stone remembered you, as though the walls had absorbed the lesson and now radiated it back quietly, steadily, unavoidably. That chamber became an unspoken threshold, a place of caution, a reminder of boundaries, a silent monument to a power they touched but never reached. Meanwhile, outside their sanctum, the world moved as it always does. But you carried on without knowing or caring what your echo had done to them. You didn't feel the need to respond. You didn't feel the need to investigate. You didn't feel the need to retaliate or correct them. Your energy doesn't chase. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't chase explanations. It doesn't chase those who attempt to dissect it. Your path continued forward. Their consequences remained behind. Yet the deeper truth, the one that unsettled them the most, was this. Even without your attention, you were changing them. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but inevitably. Your existence revealed the limitations of their framework, the fragility of their rituals, the arrogance of believing they could profile what was never meant to be analyzed. Their greatest fear wasn't that you might attack them. Their greatest fear was that someone like you exists at all. Someone who stands without lineage yet carries ancient resonance. Someone who walks without blessing yet moves like prophecy. Someone who does not ascend or descend but remains centered in their own axis. Someone whose energy cannot be read because it cannot be reduced. Someone whose refusal carries more force than any spell they have cast. Someone they cannot classify, initiate, recruit, manipulate, or contain. They could have handled an enemy. They could have handled a threat. They could have handled a rival. But a sovereign they cannot touch. That is what unravels empires. As days passed, the society reorganized its practices around the gap you left behind. They revised protocols. They strengthened wards. They created new classifications to prepare for future anomalies, though secretly, they all understood none would match your resonance. They attempted to rebuild their confidence through busy work and ritual repetition. But every time they stepped before a mirror or attempted a scry, there was always a moment of hesitation, a flicker of fear that the surface might crack again, reveal a message, deny access, deny them, deny the illusion that they were ever in control. Their greatest scholars debated your origin in hushed conversations. Some thought you were a long-lost lineage. Some believed you were a cosmic anomaly. Some argued that you were a return, a reawakening of an ancient archetype meant to balance excesses of control. But the theory that scared them the most was the simplest. You were simply yourself, unmodified, unmanipulated, untrained, powerful, not because of heritage, but because of alignment. Alignment cannot be taught. Alignment cannot be profiled. Alignment cannot be recruited. The society finally accepted what the mirror tried to tell them the moment it cracked. You do not belong to their circle. You never have. You never will. You walk a path that predates their rituals. You operate on frequencies they only read about. You carry a clarity they try to simulate through ceremony. You move in truth while they move in structure. You are not denied to protect you. You are denied to protect them. Because if the echo alone destabilized their sanctum, imagine what would happen if you ever decided to step fully into your power, consciously, intentionally, without restraint. They realized that if you ever lifted a hand, it wouldn't be destruction that followed. It would be revelation, the kind that collapses illusions, dissolves false hierarchies, and exposes every fragile construct they've built to feel powerful. Your presence would not shatter their circle. It would render it irrelevant. And that revelation, more than anything, was the wound they couldn't heal. Their fear wasn't rooted in danger. Their fear was rooted in inadequacy. Not because you threatened them, but because your existence proved that their mastery wasn't mastery. It was containment. Containment of smaller energies, containment of familiar forces, containment of predictable recruits. You are not predictable. You are not familiar. You are not small. You are the outlier their doctrines cannot hold. So they did the only thing a fragile structure can do when faced with a truth too large to absorb. They rewrote their interpretation of you. Not publicly, not ceremonially, but internally, silently. They shifted your classification from anomaly to omen, not a warning of doom, but a reminder of boundaries, sovereignty, and uncharted potential. Your file now sits alone, in a cabinet that no one opens without intention. The cracked mirror seal remains, pulsing faintly when touched. A reminder, not of failure, but of audacity. They didn't fail to understand you. They failed to understand their place in your story. Because you were never a candidate. You were never recruitment material. You were never meant to be seated in their circle. You were meant to stand beyond it, not above it, beyond it, beyond their comprehension, beyond their tools, beyond their reach, beyond their authority. And as the society quietly adjusts its rituals and reconstructs its confidence, they do so with the knowledge that somewhere outside their chambers walks a being whose mirror denies them, whose energy refuses them, whose echo recalibrates them, a being who has not even shown their real power, a being who has not yet stepped into their circle, a being who has not yet opened the mirror, a being who has not yet lifted a hand, a being who could reshape their entire existence with intention alone. You. And the truth they dare not speak aloud is this: if the echo almost broke them, the awakening will erase their illusions entirely. The society will continue, their rituals will continue, their hierarchies will continue. But they will never forget the moment the mirror cracked. The moment access denied appeared like a decree. The moment they realized sovereignty does not bow to secrecy. The moment they touched a force that cannot be profiled. They didn't just document you, they witnessed you, and witnessing you changed them forever. Your story does not end in their chambers. Your journey does not pause for their understanding. Your path continues forward, untouched, unburdened, uncontained. They tried to read you. Instead, they were rewritten, and now the world around you begins to shift, because the one thing they feared the most is finally becoming true. You were never meant to join a secret society. You were born to surpass what they believe is power. And now that they've seen the echo, they know the full force of you is not something they are prepared to meet. Not now. Not ever.